Getting great software to your customers fast is crucial to your business. Every delay is lost revenue and opportunity. While your teams iterate endlessly, you miss deadlines. That's why we created App Builder to accelerate your app delivery with one app creation platform. Now your designers, developers, and product managers can all work in the same WYSIWYG cloud-based platform. No need to download anything, no heavy IDEs or third-party dependencies, reducing friction and costly errors, and providing customers and users with better apps faster. App Builder includes a rich layout system and complete toolbox of real UI components and tools. Designers simply drag and drop actual components to build a real app fast, without the requirement of a vector-based design. With an integrated design system, you can easily create custom themes matching your product's branding. Get started quickly with a Sketch or Adobe XD file or use a pre-built app template. Preview your app in real time and see the actual code in HTML, TypeScript, and CSS for Angular or Blazor today, and soon for React and web components. Developers can instantly see the production-ready code right inside the browser, and designers and developers can spot issues early and resolve them during design. Once satisfied, developers click once to upload the code to a GitHub repository, or they can download a zip file of the app and then run it in Visual Studio Code or their favorite IDE to generate their Angular or Blazor app. App Builder, one tool to design and build real apps blazing fast. Deliver apps faster to your customers. Try App Builder today.
.NET MAUI was built from the ground up with developer productivity in mind. Not only are you going to be able to use all of the tools you know and love from Visual Studio, like IntelliSense and IntelliCode and XAML Hot Reload, but you'll also be able to use some great new tools like .NET Hot Reload, which lets you change your C# while the app is running and see that new code without having to rebuild and redeploy your app. Of course, .NET MAUI has a whole new project architecture too. So if you're coming from the Xamarin Forms world, you're probably familiar with having different head projects, we call them, for your Android and iOS and Windows targets. But now you don't need to maintain different projects for all your different platforms. You can just do it all from one multi-targeted .NET 6 project where all of your images and all of your fonts and all of your resources can live with just one copy that you don't have to maintain all over the place. And you can build and deploy to any of the platforms that we're supporting with .NET 6 and .NET MAUI from that single project.
Hello everyone and welcome to .NET Conference Korea 2022. My name is Jason Barris. I am a Senior Vice President at Infragistics, and today I am going to talk to you about how Infragistics can help you build better applications faster with our tools. We're going to look at three areas today. The first one is our App Builder product, which is a low-code application development tool, which will help you build screens faster than ever and save you up to 80% of your time. And then we'll take a look at Blazor, specifically around data grids and data charts, and how easy it is to actually get started with Blazor, bind data, and really get your applications going very quickly. And then finally, we'll take a look at a really interesting component called the Dock Manager, which lets you build desktop-like experiences, but although for the web. So let's take a look at the App Builder. The App Builder is all about design to code and helping you create your applications faster. What we've done is we've built a WYSIWYG IDE in the cloud that allows you to drag and drop UI components onto the screen and then generate Angular or Blazor apps. So this is something that you really don't get with the web today. It's more like what you would get with Visual Basic 6 or Windows Forms, where you can drag and drop controls, design a screen, and then you're actually getting source code with that. You're building your application. So we've taken a very similar approach, but we've added some interesting capabilities like theming, data binding, dialogues, and then synchronization to GitHub, which is nice because you can take your application and then continue to work on it. Today I'm going to show you how all of this works. App Builder is 100% cloud-based. We deliver it either through the browser or an Electron app, which you can download and have a desktop experience. This makes it really easy for you to design screens and then work with others in the application so you can accelerate your application development. The way you can start is with a default layout, one of our starter applications, or you can even import Sketch or Adobe XD files. So it's very easy to go from 0 to 100 with the App Builder because we give you the ability to get started very, very quickly. And you'll see this in my demo. The beauty of this is we have all of the UI controls. So anything that we ship in our Angular or Blazor product, you get inside the App Builder, which means that everything that you drag and drop, set properties on, will allow you to get that real source code once you decide to generate the code. And the custom and pre-built themes allow you to make the application look how your users would expect. So when your users are looking at your company's applications, they have a certain branding, they have a certain theme applied to them. You can do the same thing with App Builder. You can make the application look exactly like your corporate brand with no changes. And one of the best parts of App Builder is the fact that you can get instant real-time previews, not only of your running application, but of your source code either in Angular or Blazor. In the future, we plan to ship React and web component support, but right now you can deliver an entire Blazor application with the App Builder in a drag and drop experience. And then finally, you can download your source code to a zip file or you can synchronize it to GitHub in one click. Today, I'm going to show you how to do both, which will make it really easy for you to get started with your apps. Let's take a look at a demo on how App Builder works. To get started with App Builder, go to infragistics.co.kr, Products, Indigo Design, App Builder. Or you can simply go to the Infragistics homepage, do the drop down, and select App Builder from the main menu. What you'll see on this page is all of the basic information on App Builder and what you need to get started. We fully support Korean language with App Builder, so you don't have anything to worry about when you get started. The best thing to do is to click the big green button, and then you can start your journey with using the App Builder. I happen to have App Builder installed, and you can see it down here in my Start menu. I'm going to click it, and I'll move it over to my screen here. And once you log into App Builder, you can expect a very similar looking application like this. On the left-hand side, I have My Projects, Recent Projects, Deleted Apps, and then Group Workspaces. Group Workspaces are how you manage your team. So for example, if I click a plus sign on a group workspace, and I'll say Korea Demo, now I have a group workspace called Korea Demo. At this point, I can add people to the group workspace by simply typing in their email. So here I can add Dongsu. And now he will get an invite to this workspace, which means that everything that I do inside of this workspace, he'll be able to have access to. This is how you control the security of who can access your designs and applications. I'm going to go ahead and hit the Done button. Next, let's review what we see on this screen. So here's where you can create your first application, or you can get started with one of our demo applications. What I'm going to do is pick one of our demo applications, the People app, and click Try Sample. Once I click Try Sample, this application is generated for me, and I can edit it inside of the IDE. You'll notice now I am in the App Builder IDE. On the left-hand side, I have my toolbox of all the UI controls. I have all of the screens that are in this application. I have the data sources that are used within all of my workspaces. This data source are mock data sources, Northwind and Travel app that you get for free with the application. Your theming, and then your assets. So for example, if you want to upload images and use them in your application, you could do it here. Or if you're synchronizing an Adobe XD or Sketch file, you would see those images here as well. But if I go back to my screens, this is a single page application just like Angular or React or jQuery. The nice thing about this is you don't care what type of framework you're going to use. We give you the framework chooser here essentially just to generate the code. So if I select Angular, nothing changes. If I select Blazor, nothing changes. It's the same UI. Now if I go to the preview screen, what we'll see in real time is the actual application that we've designed. And this is a real-time preview. The nice thing is I can click the code view, and if I move this over to the left, you'll see that I get all of the code that makes up this application as well. And if I scroll down, you can see this is Blazor, so this is a Razor page with some code. Now if I change this to Angular, you'll see that the HTML, the markup is a little bit different, and I don't have that code tag at the bottom, but I do have a TypeScript option, and I have a CSS option. So if I go back and I select Blazor, we have our Razor page and our SCSS. So the hard part of doing layout and all those other complexities are really masked with using a tool like this. Now if I go back to edit mode, you'll see that as I select UI controls, the right-hand panel changes because that's where the property editors are for these components, as well as I have my DOM layout on the left-hand side. So as I select items, it's inside of the DOM layout, and you can see how all of that works. Let's make a little change to this application. I'll go to the theme option, and let's make this the dark theme. So now with one single click, my theme went from a light theme to a dark theme. So now all of the pages are using the dark theme. If I go back to theme, I can also do things like create a new theme. So let's create a Korea NetConf theme. And I want to base this off of Bootstrap, and I want my colors to be a little bit different. Let's go with the greenish color for my primary. My secondary, I'll do a lighter blue. For surface, we will maybe make it a little bit like that. And then you can do things like change the typography. I can change the roundness to semi-round, and I want my application to be elevated, and I click Save. Once I click Save, the theme is saved in my custom themes area, and it's generated in the application. Now what you'll notice, if I zoom in, is that the theme is much more than simply colors. We've actually changed the roundness of the UI controls. This means that the spacing, the roundness, the elevation, the typography that go into your design system of your enterprise can all be applied using the app builder. Now let's go ahead and select download zip. Before we do that, let's go back to our default themes and put this back to our Titilium web, and then we will download the zip file. And I'm going to unzip this file, and you'll notice I have all of the source code that I would need for this application. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on the CSproj file and open this inside of Visual Studio. At the same time, it's restoring packages, and if I go into my pages, you can see my home.razor file. So everything that we had inside of the app builder is here. I go to my info, all of the code is there. And then, of course, this is using the minimal API. So I've registered all of the Ignite UI Blazor components for this particular application. Let's go ahead and run the app. This opened up on my other screen here. And if I move this over to the left, you can see that I have a pixel perfect representation of the application that I created in the app builder. Everything you see here is an actual component. So when I select these options, these are actually tab controls. When I click my main menu at the top, all of the routing and navigation is done for me, and everything is available to you. This is not an image, it is an actual running application. So I'm going to go ahead and close the browser. Back in the app builder, let's make a new application. I'm going to click the menu in the upper left, and I'm going to go to my projects, and here I am in my default project view. Let's go back to our Korea demo, and I'm going to do a new app. And what I'm going to do is a blank application. So now that I have a blank application, really I can add any component that I want to this screen. So if I go back to my UI components, what I would like to do is add a data grid, and with that data grid, go ahead and show you how this all comes together. So let me scroll down in my controls, and you'll see here grid. So I'm going to drag a grid onto the form. And we have data here, so this is category, so I can pick any one of these options here. So let me go ahead and click products. So I have the products, and I want my width of this to be 100%. So now this will be 100% of this page. And my height, I can say, 750 pixels if I want. I can really just resize this however I'd like. But the nice thing is this is actually binding data underneath the hood. So if I click the preview, what you're going to see is all of the data on my screen, like so, and you're going to see the code that it's generating. So what this is doing is creating the data grid with the correct columns, as well as generating the asynchronous call to get the data from the service that we're creating in the background. So now if I go ahead and I select Blazor, I'm going to go back to edit, and I want to download this zip file. And let's go to my downloads folder. Here's my untitled app. Let's open this in Visual Studio. I'll go to Pages, Master View, and you can see that it generated the code. It did the asynchronous call to the service. Now, if I run this application, and this is on my other screen, so we'll slide it over. You can see that we have all of the data here in the data grid. Now, the nice thing is we also have all of the capability of the grid itself. So, for example, I can do a grouping by category ID. I can do filtering based on different categories. I can do things like sorting. I can move columns to the left or to the right. I can pin columns. So if I apply this, you can see that I have pinned columns. So all of the capabilities that you get with the grid, you're going to flow through right into this generated code. If we close this out and go back into the app builder, I'll show you how you can actually get data into your application. So here I'm inside the app builder, and if I go to the data tab, you'll know we've got a couple mock data sources. If I click the plus sign and I add a REST API, this will allow me to add a REST data source, so I can upload JSON or add a URL. I'm going to call this test data demo, and I want to add a URL. But the way that I want to add this URL is going to use another application that we've created called XL2JSON. So I'm going to type in XL2JSON.io, and what this allows you to do is create any type of data from Excel to JSON that you can use in your applications. It makes it super easy. So I'm going to browse my computer, and I'm going to go to Northwind Excel. And what this does is it's pulling in that Excel file, and it's going to create a JSON file for me. So you can see here's my Excel file. Here is the JSON for that file. So I've got order details, products, regions, basically everything that's in that file is automatically created inside of the application in JSON. So this makes it really easy for you to test data, create data, etc., so you can get started immediately. So for example, I have the territories data here. Let's say that I just want to get a link to this data. So now XL2JSON is going to store this on the cloud for me. So I'm going to click copy, and let's paste this URL into the browser. And you can see that here is my JSON. So let's take that same URL and let's paste it here inside of App Builder. So I will say done, and I'm going to say select data, and I want to select all of this data, and I want to click done. So now I've got my test data right here in my data options. So let's go back to this grid, and I'm going to select data, test data. There's my table. Now I have the same exact data that I just had in Excel in the cloud being consumed inside of the App Builder. So now if I go to preview, you can see that we've generated all of this code, and we're pointing directly to that cloud service with an asynchronous call. All this is using standard C#.NET code. So this is live data in real time. So let me go back to edit. I'm going to delete this grid. And what I want to do is create a resizable layout for this screen. So I'm going to change my base canvas to a column. And I could go back to the toolbox to drag a row layout or a column layout, but we also have a shortcut in the App Builder. Control+E brings up this dialog. So here I could say give me a column layout. So there's my column layout. And I want that column layout to be 100% width, and I want it to be 100% height. So now that is a resizable flex layout within the App Builder. I'm going to close out my tips here. Now within this column layout, I want to go ahead and add the grid again. And now the grid, if I tell it to be 100% and 100% height, like so, now that will live within the constraints of whatever size the browser is. So we'll just leave it at that. I can click preview, and everything looks great. So once you have this grid configured, you know that whatever you download, you can get all of the source code for Blazor or Angular. What I recommend is that in the application, you start with some of the sample projects. So click New App, go to Sample Apps, and select any one of the sample applications. And take a look at how we've designed the application, look at all of the screens in the application, and sort of understand how it all ties together. We also have training videos on YouTube which will guide you through every aspect of using App Builder to build out your applications. Next, let's take a look at what you can do with .NET 6 and Blazor. So with Infragistics, we ship .NET 6 support in every product. So Windows Forms, WPF, MVC, Blazor, ASP.NET Core, it doesn't matter. We have you covered for .NET 6. This means all of the Visual Studio 2022 features work, as well as the component features that you would expect. So as you're moving to .NET 6, you can use Infragistics Ultimate, localized in Korean, of course, to build your next application. To get .NET 6 components, go to our Ultimate homepage off of infragistics.co.kr, and you can download everything there. You can read the documentation, or you can just browse the website. Now for Blazor, we've done some really interesting things. With this latest release, we've shipped a bunch of new Blazor components, which is pretty exciting. What I'm going to show you today is how easy it is to get started with our Blazor data grid and our Blazor data chart in Visual Studio 2022. We've added APIs that you can really circumvent some of the complexity of understanding data binding by just pointing right to URLs in the cloud and binding directly to your data. This may not be how you're going to build your enterprise application, but it will definitely get you started with the controls very quickly so you can get a feel of how they work. To get started with Blazor, go to the Blazor homepage on the Infragistics.co.kr website. You can learn all about the components that we're shipping, and as you scroll down, you can link into samples. You can hear what other customers are saying. Of course, you can see some of the charts that we ship, along with some of the chart features. We also give you a little information on Blazor WebAssembly versus Blazor Server. However you decide to build your application is up to you. We talk about some of our interesting components like the Doc Manager, which is really cool. We're going to see that in a minute. And then, of course, we look at a bunch of the different UI controls that we are shipping with the Blazor product. To get started, I am going to go and use App Builder again. So I'm going to create a new app, and this app is going to use a default layout here where I've got a couple different screens. So I'm going to click Use Layout for a header plus left nav. So let me click Use Layout. And what you'll see here is a application with some navigation. So if I preview this, we've got different screens that pop up, and you can see that the code changes a little bit on the left-hand side. So I'm going to change View 1 content to put customers grid here. View 2, put a stock chart here, and view 3, leave this empty. Oops. Like so. So I've got my view 1, view 2, view 3, and actually here I want to change this title to data grid, and I want to go to the next one that says view 2, data chart. And view 3, we're going to change to anything or nothing, like so. All right, so now if I click preview, you can see that we're updating this application kind of in real time. And what we might as well do here as well for app name, .NET Conf Korea 2022, like so. And you can do different things here, add icons, content, actions, etc. The way that this click event works and the way that we're moving between screens is we have these interactions. So on click, I can open, close, show, hide, and or navigate to different screens. So we're actually just telling it to navigate to some different screens. And you can see here in the preview, this is exactly what's happening, like so. So let's go ahead and change this app to grid chart demo, and I will download this application. And let's go ahead, go back to here, go to our downloads. Let's extract this guy here, go to my grid chart demo, and I am going to open up this application. Now, if we go to the startup, you'll notice that we've registered some services here for using the Ignite UI for Blazor controls. What I'm going to do is go over to our pages. We have our View 1 Razor. Remember I said to put the customer's grid here. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, the tag for the data grid is the IGB, and you'll see data chart, and I'm going to do a data grid. And for this data grid, what I want to do is give it a height and a width. So let's say the height equals, let's do 600 pixels, I guess. And the width equals, let's make it take up 100% of the space. Now, the secret sauce here is how you actually get data into this grid, which is really, really slick. Like any other grid, you need to set the data source property. So I'm going to set the data source property, but I am going to paste in some code here. It's kind of long to type. But the beautiful thing is we've added an API that says I want the data source to be a remote JSON object, and I want to pass it a URI in that JSON object. And if you remember earlier in the demo, when we did our Excel to JSON, we took an Excel file and we created a remote URI. I'm doing the same thing here. And if I scroll to the right, you can see how that kind of ends up. Now, if I click this, this is what that remote JSON actually looks like. This is up in the cloud at excel2json.io. So refer to earlier on how to actually create that. Now, in this case, all I'm doing is passing the data source, and my grid is ready to run. So all I'm going to do is click the Run button, and we'll see what we get. We have our application, which had our different navigation on the left, but you can see here, here's our data grid with all of our data. And of course, as I hover over each column header, I get my overflow menu, so I can do things like I can do a group by. So now our grid is grouped with collapsible and expandable groups. I may want to pin contact name to the left, so I have that pin to the left for my scrolling. I may want to select just a few options here and apply that, and my grid gets filtered out. So with one line of code, you've got a fully functional data grid. Now, if you remember, I've got my other screens here on the left-hand side. So I've got my data chart, anything or nothing. Let's do the same thing now with the data chart. We'll close out the browser. Now let's go back to our view 2, and you'll notice we have our put data chart here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll just paste in our category chart and the data source, which is again another remote JSON call. So you can see here I've got my remote data. The interesting thing here is there's another capability like including and excluding properties. So I want to include the open and the date. So if we look at this again, we've got date, open, high, low, close, volume. I just want open and date in this data set. And so we're only going to render that in the chart. So now if I run this, here's our grid. Now I click the data chart, and you can see that here is our data chart with tooltips, and it looked beautiful with an animation. I can zoom in, zoom out. This is a time series on the bottom, so it's a very sophisticated chart type. But in one line of code, you're back in to have something that's really useful and actually really compelling. And just so you can see how it works, I'm going to replace this category chart with a different set of data. So I have product and sales data, and then I've added a couple other properties like change the brushes to purple and added an animation to the chart. So now I'll hit save and we'll run this. And just like that, we have another beautiful data visualization in one line of code. And finally, I want to show you the Doc Manager. So the sample that I want to show you for Doc Manager is on the website. Again, if you're at the Blazor components page and you go into all of the components that are available to you. So here I can jump into the samples. You'll see the Doc Manager. Now the Doc Manager is again a very sophisticated component. So if I expand this out to full screen, you can see the Doc Manager gives you a desktop-like docking experience, but although inside of the browser. So I can move windows, I can dock windows wherever I'd like them. They can be floating panes. I can maximize windows, minimize windows, all kinds of things you can do with this Doc Manager. So it's really, really interesting. You can see over here I've pinned and unpinned a few tabs. But what's really neat is we have an example on the website which lets you use this with Electron. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize all my screens. And I'm going to go to my Start menu, and I've installed the Doc Manager Electron app. Let me move this over to my primary screen. And you can see here that I've got a data grid on the top, and I've got a chart, and I've got another chart here on the right. Now, if I take this and I drag it, it can remove itself from this application. So what I have is a Blazor or a React or a Vue. It doesn't matter what type of application. The Doc Manager in conjunction with Electron, or probably even WebView 2 from Microsoft, will allow you to have a Windows desktop-like experience, but although inside of the browser. So I built a browser application, and I can freely move sections of that browser in and out of my core application, yet they still have a connection to each other. So now as I drag this guy back in, we can put him back in the top, and now I have this Windows desktop-like experience, but although building a Blazor application or building an Angular application. So even if you have to deliver a very rich experience like a desktop would, you can still have a nice docking, floating window sort of UI that you would have with WPF or Windows Forms, but although on the web. So I want to thank everybody for attending the session today. To learn more, get 21.2 today at infragistics.co.kr, products, ultimate. And you can also read the blogs for every platform at Infragistics community/blogs. And then, of course, to contact us, it's apacsales@infragistics.com.
비주얼 스튜디오에 이제 크리에이트 프로젝트 하셔서 이제 블레이저 웹 어셈블리 앱이라고 하는 기본 템플릿을 선택을 해주시고 그 프로젝트를 생성을 하시면은 지금 화면과 같은 게 등장을 하실 거예요.